Hey, what is going on, Twintendo Nation? Hope you're having an awesome day. Yesterday we got quite a bit of Pokemon news, nothing too exciting in terms of new Pokemon or anything like that, but we actually got a lot of new details that just came out of nowhere. There was an exclusive interview with Game Informer. There's loads of things that have come out today as well, like concept art and some interview stuff. So there's just a lot to talk about, so I'll keep this intro brief. Of course, if you want to stay up to date with everything Pokemon Sword and Shield, hit the subscribe button. And if you do enjoy today's video, a like on the video is super appreciated. So let's start off with autosaving. We saw like a bit of evidence of this last month, and fans who, you know, like soft reset were really worried, like, are we not going to be able to like soft reset shinies anymore? So it's a modern game, it has autosaving, which is kind of weird for Pokemon. I'm so used to saving about 3 times in a row to make sure I've saved. But yeah, it has autosave, and luckily enough, if you do soft reset, you can turn it off, so it's not something you have to have on. I'm personally not too bothered about soft resetting, at least at the start of the game, so I have autosave like on until I actually want a shiny hunt, like legendaries or whatever. I'm going to be soft resetting. I'm not too bothered about the starters. I know some people will. I'm hoping the starters aren't shining locked, otherwise people are going to be there for a long time. So that's kind of cool. The next thing, this is obviously a very interesting topic. Pokemon cut from the Sword and Shield National Dex will return in future games. So yeah, this is split opinions. I'm not too fussed really. It is disappointing, of course. It depends how many Pokemon are cut. We don't really know at the moment. If it's more than like 300, I'm going to be disappointed. But if it's like 200 or less, I can deal with that. But yeah, they basically, Junichi Masuda has confirmed that the Pokemon that aren't in this game, obviously Pokemon Sword and Shield, will return for future series. I mean, I think that was obvious. I think whatever they have lined up next, maybe the Pokemon Diamond and Pearl remake, if that is going to happen, which I'm assuming it will, that will have a lot of the Pokemon that weren't shown off in obviously Pokemon Sword and Shield, and then hopefully using Pokemon Home, which is kind of like the new Pokemon Bank, we can transfer the Pokemon from Sword and Shield to Diamond and Pearl, and hopefully have every single Pokemon together. Once again, we just have to wait a bit longer than usual, which is, like I said, a shame, but hopefully one day we will see, you know, a Pokemon game that has every single Pokemon again. But yeah, next up, Chums are not in Pokemon Sword and Shield as they go against the idea of wild areas and freedom. So, I mean, they were kind of cut in a way with Pokemon Sun and Moon. We had, like, I can't remember the exact terminology, but obviously, you know, like Tauros for like going around the region faster. It's kind of like the bike, I guess. You had like, you know, Sharpedo to go across the water in, and like other, you know, other Pokemon, you use them for your HM basically. You had the weird Machamp carry thing, and that was quite cool, although it was a bit weird. You were just kind of randomly borrowing Pokemon out of nowhere. But in this one, there's just none of that at all. I'm assuming we can use Fly and stuff like that to get around the region, but maybe that won't be done with, you know, a Pokemon this time, because we know there's a Corviknight taxi services which obviously can get you around the region similar to trains and stuff. Maybe there will be no reason to use Fly. Interesting stuff. Kind of glad that HMs are not in the game. They were saying it's kind of like a lock and key effect in the old game, so just to lock you off for an area, and then you'd have to get the HM to open it up. But you don't really need that, because wild areas, you can just go where you want when you're in the wild area. And of course, you know, wild areas aren't the entire region. You know, that it's not the entire game. It don't give you that much freedom, but yeah, there's going to be a lot of wild areas, and I think that's fair enough. I don't think HMs are needed anymore. They felt really outdated back in Pokemon X and Y when they were kind of last introduced properly, and yeah, glad to see that they're gone. This is an interesting thing. Another thing that's gone, EXP Share. Good old EXP Share. This has kind of had a little bit of controversy down the years, but this has gone completely, and instead Pokemon in your party all get equal experience. Kind of weird that. I'm not against it at all. Some people, you know, like to turn off EXP Share to make the game harder. I'm not sure if this can be turned off or not. I'm not too bothered. I like, you know, getting loads of level 100 Pokemon. That's what I used to do. It wasn't about catching all the Pokemon for me. It was about training as many Pokemon to level 100 as I could. So I'm okay with this. I don't know what you guys think. I'm personally fine with this. Like I said, let me know in the comments. Are you bothered about the XP Share going? And do you mind that every single Pokemon in your party, no matter who's battling, will get equal XP? I'm assuming maybe the Pokemon out in front battling should get a bit more XP, but maybe not. Maybe it is all equal, instead of just the remaining 5 in the party get all equal. I don't know what that really entails. But anyway, this is very, very cool, this next one. Easier to make competitive Pokemon. So they were talking about when you're going off on your journey, you'll catch, you know, you have a starter, you'll catch some Pokemon along the way that'll become your favorites because you use them a lot. And then eventually when it comes to competitive battling, you'll get rid of them because they're not competitive. And it's very true, it is quite disappointing, but what they've been saying here is that they're kind of vague about it because they don't want to give away too much, but they said there'll be ways to edit these Pokemon to make them competitive online. So I think they mentioned something about a personality changer, because obviously personalities can affect the stats of your Pokemon, and whether there's IV stuff and EV training, there's normally EV training, but IVs are normally set. It'll be interesting to see. They're saying, like, basically making it easier to have competitive Pokemon is great because it gets more people into it, because it can be quite tiresome to make it one competitive Pokemon by breeding and then doing all sorts of things to make sure it has the right moves. So this is a step in the right direction to get as many people involved as possible. They do say you can do it, the old school method, breeding and all that stuff like you've done in the past, but they say it's not really needed anymore. But it's up to you, I guess. I'm just really glad to see that they're trying to get more people into competitive Pokemon. Now, the other thing that, this is probably the biggest thing to talk about, is that there's 18 gyms in Pokemon Sword and Shield. I'm not sure whether this means it's going to be split. Pokemon Sword has 9, Pokemon Shield has 9. By the sounds of it, no. I think each game is going to have 18 different gyms, and it's going to be interesting to see whether you have to do the minor league first, then you have to do the major league, and then can you enter in the final tournament to become the Gala champion, because they're not really having an Elite Four anymore, which I'm really glad about, because not that I don't like Elite Fours and champions and stuff, but I've always loved the anime take on the Pokemon League much more. Also, will it take like the Heart Gold Soul Silver route, where you do the minor league, then compete to be the champion in the Gala region, and then take on the major league after? I don't know, but this is gonna mean, we know there's exclusive gyms in Pokemon Sword and Shield. Does that mean that we'll get to fight these other gym leaders eventually? It might just be later down the line, depending on the version of your game. Or are they still exclusive no matter what? Very interesting. It means there's going to be a lot of different gym leaders, and most importantly, there's going to be the first ever Dark type gym, because there's 18 gyms and there's 18 types. It's fair to assume that there's not going to be more than one of the same type. So Dark type gym should be pretty much confirmed for Pokemon Sword and Shield. So that is very, very exciting. Even people who aren't really behind Pokemon Sword and Shield, they saw that and thought, okay, fair enough, that is cool. And absolutely, for me, I can't wait. That was just got me more excited for these games. Now, there are a few more bits of information like concept art and a few interview quotes that I can't really find a source for. They say it's Game Informer's. Some people on Twitter, this is where I found it. So maybe it's in their magazine issue when that comes out and not on their website. But I'll show you the concept art. Basically, it's kind of stuff we've seen already, with the house setting and the English countryside, and then we can see wind turbines and a Pokeball balloon, hot air balloon in the background. I think that's very cool. And the most interesting thing is this Pokemon Stadium. So we've seen at the top of the map there is a stadium that looks very similar to Wembley Stadium, England's national football stadium with the big arch over it. But this one is not styled off Wembley. It looks very, very similar to the Emirates Stadium, which is Arsenal's home ground. This looks pretty much identical, and it's got a really cool Pokeball decal, I guess, around the top of the roof, basically. I think that's really cool. You can see clearly how it's based off the Emirates Stadium. I'm not sure if that stadium is going to make the final game, because we know they've gone for Wembley Stadium at least at the top of the map, as we've seen. But maybe the Emirates Stadium or something based off that is in Pokemon Sword and Shield. But as we know, the gyms themselves, the stadiums, they seem to be very similar. I kind of wish the gyms looked a bit different each, because they look on the outside pretty much all the same, apart from the color of what their type represents and stuff. So I don't know. They probably just went for one realistic football stadium, but I thought that concept art was very, very cool. Now, the last things I want to talk about is basically some interview quotes, how they were planning to change Pokemon and Pokemon Sword and Shield, and they looked at maybe even changing the battling system. This was quite rumored for a long time before Sword and Shield was shown off, that there was going to be no more turn-based battles. They said they were actually looking at changing it, but decided against it, just because they didn't want to disrupt the balance of Pokemon. And they even looked at taking away the 4-move aspect and trying with 5 or 3, but they said that with 5 it was just too unpredictable, and with 3 you'd just be picking the same overpowered Pokemon, and so 4 made it more balanced. But it's interesting that they were looking at stuff that's been in Pokemon since the start, obviously back with Red and Blue, and we're thinking about changing it, because Pokemon, yes, I think we can all agree it's gone stale a bit, and I do think it needs a change down the line, but it's nice to know that they're kind of looking at it. I think one day we will see the battle system change at some point. And then they also looked at how, making a game on the Switch compared to 3DS was much tougher than they thought in terms of graphics and rendering. And they have 180 to 200 core members that work on Pokemon Sword and Shield. but they basically recruited around 1,000 names. This isn't in terms of making Pokemon Sword and Shield, but people, you know, like localizing the game and just like kind of promoting it as well. So it had a pretty large like, I guess, group of people working on Pokemon Sword and Shield, but don't get those numbers twisted. It isn't people working on the game itself in terms of, you know, the graphics and everything and the models, and, you know, because I think people have been twisting that and being like, why don't we have every single Pokemon? Because there's 1,000 people working on it. It's literally like 20% of those are actually working on the game. But yeah, it's still interesting to see that, like how many people got behind, you know, working on this game. And then they've also looked at the legendary Pokemon and like how would, you know, the people of the Galar region, how would they see the legendary Pokemon? And they're going with like this legend that no one's ever seen. Zacian or Zamazenta, they just heard about them, and there's a myth basically, and they have they were called like the Cyan and the Magenta. So like when they talk about them, they call them the Cyan and the Magenta, and that's where they actually kind of get their names from. So Zacian is similar to Cyan, and then Magenta, Zamazenta is similar to Magenta. That's where their names come from, apparently. Quite interesting. We'll need to look a bit more into that, I think, because it was kind of a weird explanation of how they link. But obviously we know their colors are kind of Cyan and Magenta, Zacian and Zamazenta. And then they also talk about raid battles, how yes, they are very similar to Pokemon Go, but they were kind of inspired by the mythologies of ancient Britain, which they kind of didn't really go into more detail about. I didn't really understand that comparison. And they also said they were planning to make this anyway, but Pokemon Go kind of did it first, but it made sense for them to put it in the game anyway. So that's pretty interesting. And then finally they talk about Dynamaxing and how it's going to change competitive Pokemon. They fought with, you know, Mega Evolutions and Z moves, since you have to like carry an item to basically make those happen. When you ever see a Pokemon use an item competitively, you know, oh, that's not going to be a Pokemon that's going to Mega Evolve. So the difference thing with Dynamax, you don't have to carry an item. This is something they wanted, so you never know when Dynamax Pokemon is going to happen. And Dynamax Pokemon lasts for 3 turns. They were thinking about balancing it, making it last for 2 turns, but felt that 3 turns was kind of the right idea. So that's some very interesting information. The concept art was really cool. The 18 gyms is very, very interesting. And then we have the live stream coming up very soon on October the 4th. Hopefully we'll get some new Pokemon then. And of course, I was going to say we have Korokoro, but they've really not been involved in the news cycle this Pokemon generation, which is kind of strange, kind of sad, because I do miss the Korokoro leaks. But I don't know, knowing little amount about Pokemon Sword and Shield makes me very, very excited for this game. So guys, if you did enjoy today's video, make sure to hit the like button down below, and if you want to stay up to date with everything Pokemon Sword and Shield, hit the subscribe button down below. Let me know in the comments below what was your favorite thing from this little news update. And yeah guys, thank you so much for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and I will see you on the next video. Peace.